today we're meeting some creepy crawly critters. So we have a tarantula and we have a scorpion to meet today. And it's one of our largest tarantulas and our largest of all of our scorpions. So we're actually going to meet the tarantula first. Her name is Blondie. And if you're not comfortable with creepy crawlies, that is okay. I'm not going to be mad at you. I know not everybody is super in love with all animals like I am. Not everybody loves snakes and spiders and tarantula, and well, spiders are tarantulas, and scorpions, and even bugs, and what are some other animals? Frogs. Sometimes people don't like them, but we actually offer exposure therapy here at Once in a Wild, which sounds a little strange, but it's actually just getting you exposed to some of your fears. If you happen to be afraid of spiders, we might be able to bring a spider in your vicinity and maybe get you used to just being in the same room with them, and then gradually working your way up to being next to them, even touching or holding the spider. But the best way to conquer your fears is actually getting more information or more exposure, if you will, to snakes, spiders, bugs, whatever you happen to be a little bit nervous around. Maybe you're nervous around birds, and we can help you meet some nice birds or some nice tarantulas if you happen to be a little bit nervous around tarantulas and other creepy crawlies. So this is Blondie, and she's an Arizona blonde tarantula, and she does let me hold her very gently in different ways. She's a very gentle and docile tarantula. So she's a great one to actually meet if you're a little bit nervous around tarantulas. And she's a great tarantula to teach about because she lets me actually present her in pretty much any way I want to. And I can show her different features and body parts to teach kiddos of all ages about arachnids. So of course she is an arachnid. First of all, she's an arthropod and an invertebrate, which both of our critters today are actually invertebrates and arthropods. Arthropods just mean many feet. And invertebrates, of course, being an invertebrate, that literally means no bones. So invertebrates have 0 bones inside of their body. They don't have a skeleton. Instead, they have an exoskeleton or shell, right? So on the outside of their body is where their structure is. It's a shell, like a crab or a lobster or a spider or an insect. All sorts of animals that are invertebrates have an outer shell. Not every sort of invertebrate actually has a hard outer shell. Some, such as octopus and squid and things like that, they're actually very soft, and they're typically going to be an aquatic type animal, right? So the water in their body and the water around them helps them to support their structure. But this type of animal is a land animal. They don't live in the water. In fact, this is a desert species of tarantula, and tarantulas do live all over the place. They might be found in the jungle. They might be found in the forest. They might be found in your own backyard sometimes, and they might be found in Arizona, which is where the Arizona blonde tarantula comes from. And she and other tarantulas found in other desert habitats, they are very well adapted to a hot, dry, barren type climate, right, and habitat or biome, right? So they are very well adapted to basically not ever having to drink water and eating very little. So this type of tarantula and most desert or even dry forest type tarantulas, not the rainforest, more dry type weather, those guys don't have to eat every day. In fact, no spider has to eat every day, but your tropical type species of tarantula, like your pink-toe tarantulas, etc., those guys can actually eat every day if they want to, or store food. A lot of tropical type spiders or wet weather spiders do store food, or they try to eat every day. That can happen. Maybe they'll eat small meals. But most spiders only eat about once a week, more or less. This type of spider, though, since they live in a very dry climate and are adapted to living there, they usually eat about once a month. That is very comfortable for them, eating once a month. Here with us, we do feed Blondie about every other week, which is more than enough. And we typically give her more than one food item each feeding, so she can kind of choose to eat them now or later. Typically, I'll give her a couple of crickets, and she'll eat them over a couple of days per every other week, if that makes sense. She does prefer crickets over dubia roaches and worms and things like that. Sometimes I've offered her like super worms, like kind of safely with tongs. And I have offered her dubia roaches. She ate one dubia roach for me one time, but otherwise she really likes the gut-loaded crickets. Now, if you do have arachnids at home and you're taking care of them, or you want one someday, it is important to gut load your crickets before feeding them out, to your animals, because crickets are basically like a hollow shell. They're also an invertebrate with an exoskeleton, and crickets aren't really much nutrition for your animals in general, even for your lizards and other animals that eat crickets, which are lots of them, even like hedgehogs eat crickets. It's really important to make sure those crickets are getting the proper nutrition and gut load, if you will, before they are fed out to your animals. That way they have enough nutrition to pass on to those animals and enough moisture inside of them as well. Because crickets that are not fed properly, maybe they're just from the pet store and the pet store wasn't necessarily feeding them that day or feeding them properly, they're just a hollow shell. It's like eating, I don't even know what to compare that to, but it's like eating a taco shell with no taco meat in it. You're not getting nearly as much nutrition. I never thought about it that way, but you're not getting as much nutrition. And especially when they don't eat very often, when they do eat, they need that nutrition. So that's something I always want to mention when feeding out crickets. Dubia roaches and other feeders like that are much better, a much better choice for your arachnids and animals in general. But sometimes you get picky eaters like this one who only want to eat crickets. One of our chameleons, Sam, is like that too, and he likes crickets more than roaches and worms. So we tend to feed him more gut-loaded cricket than anything else, just because that stimulates him to eat a little bit better. Crickets do move a lot more. I also have one of our leopard geckos, Fiona, who prefers crickets over worms too. She has now converted pretty much over to worms too, but I digress. Those guys sometimes just need a little bit more movement and stimulation. And that's the best thing about crickets, is they do move and jump, and oftentimes that will stimulate your predatory cricket-eating animals or bug-eating animals to actually go after them and eat. So that was Blondie, our Arizona blonde tarantula. She's a great ambassador for her species and for tarantulas in general. And again, we do actually offer therapy with our spiders. Some of our spiders are very docile like this. We have two in particular. We have Blondie, the Arizona blonde, and we have a pink toe tarantula named Tiptoes. And both of those are extremely safe to hold. So we can hold them for you and actually show them up close and show kids and adults alike all their moving parts, and teach you all about how harmless they are and how wonderful they are and how you can just leave them alone and they'll leave you alone. Or we can even let select few of you who want to conquer your fears, or you just love tarantulas, we can let you guys hold them in, of course, a supervised situation. And we make sure that they're safe and you're safe and everybody's doing well. But if that's something you're interested in, please let me know by contacting us at the number right here down below. We would love to meet you in person if you happen to be in the South Texas area. If not, we can provide a virtual animal encounter for you. If creepy crawlies are your thing, then we can theme it out either virtually or in person to have a creepy crawly themed encounter. We have all sorts of invertebrates to show you guys. But let me show you one more, and we'll let Blondie go ahead and rest. And we'll let my arm rest a little bit. The next animal is a little bit easier to hold at a certain angle like this. I don't have to worry about the next animal falling. Fun thing about, or not so fun thing about tarantulas, is that they're actually quite fragile. So I'm always very careful. I don't want anything to happen to Blondie. But this girl here, she's got a lot more armor on her, and she actually will stay on my hand a lot easier. And I just love her. She's my favorite of all of our invertebrates. It's Xena. Xena, the African flat rock scorpion. So this is actually one of the largest species of scorpion in the entire world. This one and the emperor scorpion kind of are tied for the largest. The African flat rock, which is what Xena is, this one, is the largest by space that they take up when they sit on something. You can see how big they are. She's just huge. And the emperor scorpion is heavier by a little bit. So they're a little bit less space that they take up, but this scorpion here is lighter in weight and really easy to hold. As you can see, she kind of grips onto my hand and just perches there, which is fantastic. African flat rock scorpions are found in Africa, and it's another desert species. Now remember, we're comparing and contrasting these two species and scorpions and spiders in general. They're both arachnids. They're both, of course, invertebrates. So let's start there. Arthropods in general, remember, are invertebrates, and arachnids are invertebrates too. And invertebrates literally have no bones in their body. They have an exoskeleton. This one has a very obvious exoskeleton or shell. Looks just like a crab or a lobster to me, a little less hard and a little less armored than a lobster or a crab, but a very, very similar animal if you think about it. In fact, their ancient relatives are going to be crab or lobster-like creatures from the dinosaur days. Back in the before history, prehistoric times, they were actually a lot bigger as well. So the scorpion ancestors, for the most part, they are very, very unchanged, by the way. These type of animals have not changed for a long, long time. They've kept the same body structure, pretty much the same everything for a long time. They have changed in size and where they hang out. They used to be more of an aquatic type animal, and they used to be about 4 foot long or less sometimes. So the biggest of the big that we know of, and we're always discovering things all the time, so who knows? There might have been different ones than this and bigger ones. The biggest of the big that we have discovered from the past were about 4 foot long and lived in the ocean, and they would come out periodically onto land. So that is pretty neat, right? So they kind of started as an aquatic animal, as a lot of animals did back in the old days before any of us were around. Now these guys are a very slow growing and long-lived animal. This is another arachnid, like the Arizona blonde, that actually lives a long time. They can live into their 30s. That actually goes for males and females. So males and females of the African flat rock scorpion, especially, they live a long time. So it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, you can live extra long life. So that's pretty cool. For some reason, the tarantula males, remember, they don't live very long whatsoever. And that's all tarantulas. Most male tarantulas do not make it past 5 years old. So these guys, I don't know how old Xena is either, because I did receive her as an adult too. I've had her for a few years now, and I just love her. She's so impressive. But she was already this big when I got her. So she could be, I mean, at least 15 or 20 years old. I hope not, though, because I want to have her a long time. But she does have a life expectancy of at least 30. What else? These guys are arachnids, like I said, and they have 2 main body parts. Their main body parts don't look like a figure 8 like a spider does. To me, a spider looks like a figure 8, kind of like 2 balls basically together like an 8. And these guys really don't have that shape. They're more of a cephalothorax, which is here. Just kind of that front little section that's a little more smooth. And then when the ridges start here, that's her abdomen. So cephalothorax and abdomen. But hers is almost like one shape, almost like a roach or something like that. That's what it reminds me of. And then their tail curls around. But of course the spiders don't have tails, so we'll talk about that last. These guys have the cephalothorax and abdomen like a spider. They also have 8 walking legs. And did you know they have 2 arms? I bet you did. For a scorpion, they do have very, very obvious arms, which are their pedipalps, which again are technically an extension of their mouth, but they function as arms. And on a scorpion, they are pinchers or claws, almost like a lobster has or a crab, which is fantastic and really cool. So a lot more demonstrative and obvious with their arms. So most people don't even know or are aware that spiders have 2 arms because they kind of blend into the rest of their legs. They look the same. Nobody that I know of does not know that scorpions do not have claws. That's pretty obvious and famous about them, right? Scorpions are famous for having those 2 giant claws. Some scorpions have thinner claws as well, but they always do have those pinchers or claws in the front. Those are their arms, right? Big arms. They also are very famous for having the tail, right? She's kind of curling her tail to the side, which a flat rock scorpion is known to do because they can squeeze under flat surfaces. That's why they call them a flat rock scorpion. They can kind of go under a small space like that and very easily just fit right underneath a small crevice or a flat rock. They also do hide away, just like the Arizona blonde, from the sun all day long. They only ever come out at night, and they only eat about once a month as well, just like the Arizona blonde tarantula. And that's because they have a similar biome or habitat, which is the desert in South Africa. It's a different continent, but a similar lifestyle, which I find so interesting. Both the spider that we met, the tarantula blondie, and the scorpion Xena, they have very poor eyesight. Their vision is just based on shadows, movement, light change, things like that, and their sense of touch is their main sense. So they have very similar ways of viewing the world, if you will. They can also smell, and they can detect pheromones and things when it's time for breeding and such. Other than that, they don't really use any other senses. I don't know about scorpions, but I'm pretty sure this is true about them. I do know that tarantulas do not have a brain either. They have ganglia, which is like kind of a bundle of nerves, which functions kind of like a brain, enough for them to function, but not really enough learning ability. I'm not sure about the scorpion. That's something for me to learn too. If you guys know, please let me know. But I believe they are similar with their internal anatomy as well. They're also very similar in how they breathe. They have what we call book lungs, which are similar to fish gills. But remember, that makes sense if this used to be an aquatic animal, and their book lungs function kind of like gills, but in dry land or air instead of underwater anymore. And they do breathe with sphericals, which are two tiny holes. I believe it's just two. I can't remember how many the tarantula has now. I think it is two for the tarantula too, but they just have them on their belly. So their sphericals, or the breathing holes, are actually below them on tarantulas and scorpions. And for insects, most of them have sphericals all along the top of their abdomen. So that is very different than an arachnid. But these arachnids have the two sphericals that they breathe with on their belly. Isn't that cool? So tarantulas and scorpions may not be for everyone, but I think they're fantastic and fascinating creatures. And they have a lot in common, and they have a lot different, even though they are so similar. So I hope you guys have enjoyed our program today. Xena did a fantastic job, and so did Blondie. She's waving goodbye already. She's going to adjust herself and crawl around a little bit. A lot of people do ask me, or a lot of kids, I guess, is she real? Is she alive? Yes, she is. She rarely moves during programs, so I understand why they're asking that. But every once in a while, she does move around just like this. Look at her go. She's a lot less wiggly than our emperor scorpion, Matilda. Matilda is very, very active, and she's really fun to show in person. But for the live stream, it's a little more difficult. So those of you that saw our bloopers with her one time, she was actually moving so much that she kept tumbling, which is okay. They're actually a lot less fragile than a tarantula is. So she would just like kind of crawl onto my keyboard every now and then, so that was kind of funny. But Xena is really good at just kind of gripping onto my hand. Doesn't hurt me at all, and she can just kind of feel secure and hang on. And that's what they do. They're going to go under flat rocks. They might go up onto the side a little bit. They might go under there. They're definitely not claustrophobic like me. I'm extremely claustrophobic, so I would not be a scorpion if I were an animal, and I would not be a tarantula either, because they go into small spaces too, but especially these flat rock scorpions. Okay, you guys, I hope you have enjoyed our creepy crawly session today. Next week, I promise I'll have something a little bit more cute and cuddly for you guys. I like to balance it out a little bit, but I thought I would just compare and contrast two more animals, just like we did last week, only two similar animals instead of two very different animals. If you didn't check out our program last week, make sure and check it out. We met a really cool ball python named Prince and a hedgehog named Shirley, and we got to learn all about them and their differences and their similarities. I'm pretty sure it was Shirley. It might have been Laverne. We have Laverne and Shirley, and I can't remember who I selected. Shirley actually works today for the San Antonio Public Library program. I'm pretty sure it was Shirley, though. Anyway, so we will see you guys next week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and stay safe out there. Enjoy your summer so far, and make sure and tune in next week at 6:30 p.m. Central Time next Wednesday, same time, same place, Facebook and YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do me a favor and do that. That is a great free way to help us out. It really does help us quite a bit to increase our following over there on YouTube. Make sure and like the video, share the video, comment, all the things. And if you would like to donate to our zoo, there are donation options down below, including Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, and Amazon wishlist. And you can visit onceinawilde.com to learn more about our animal program. We will see you guys next time.